Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm David Awotwe-Otoo, and I'm SPQA with the Office of Pharmaceutical Quality, mainly involved in post-approval changes of supplements. And pharmaceutical quality, we all have this natural inclination towards quality products for use in our everyday lives, such as computers, cars, cell phones. And drugs are no different. Patients expect very safe and effective drugs from us. So pharmaceutical quality basically is to assure that every dose that gets to the patient is safe and effective, it's free of contamination and defects. It is what gives them that confidence in their next dose of medicine. So today I'll be talking about post-approval changes in complex generic drug products from the CMC and then product quality perspectives. Per the GDF 3 commitment letter, complex drug products are defined as any product with a complex active ingredient or complex route of delivery, any product with a complex formulation such as liposomes, colloids, complex dosage forms, or even complex drug device combination products. For the purposes of today's presentation, I'll be focusing on pre-filled synthetic peptides, on metered dose inhalers, and then transdermal systems, as well as dry powder inhalation products. Per the Code of Federal Regulation, it requires that FDA be notified of any changes made to conditions established. And I would very much like us to focus on the phrase condition established, as we'll come to that later. It is applicant's duty to notify the FDA about any change in each condition that is established in an approved application beyond the variations that are already provided for in the application. And the notice is required in the form of a supplement for change. It's required that the applicant clearly list all proposed changes in the cover letter to that supplement. We also require that the holder of the application to assess the effects of these changes before distributing a product made with a manufacturing change, which means that supporting data must be provided for those proposed changes. The Code of Federal Regulation also provides us with filing categories for these based on the risk. There's a reporting category based on whether the proposed change has a substantial, moderate, or minimal potential to have an adverse effect on product quality. And when we talk about product quality, it talks about the identity, strength, quality, purity, and potency of the drug product as it relates to the safety and effectiveness of the product. Based on these reporting categories, we have major changes, which means that these are changes that have the potential. The key word here is the potential to have adverse effect on drug product quality after effecting those changes. We usually call it the tail, and then we wait for FDA to assess what has been submitted to support those changes. Once approval is given, then the firm can go ahead with effecting those changes. And it's in the it's called a prior approval supplement. We also have moderate changes. And with the moderate changes, we have the two. You said tell, wait, and do, which I call the CDER 30, which means that applicant notifies or tells the FDA that this is the change we want to make within 30 days. FDA is supposed to actually grant that change, the CDER 30, or if there are any issues, applicants will be notified that no, the change you want to, you're proposing, or the change you're proposing must be in a higher filing category than you have proposed, in which case it's elevated to a PAS. Or you have the CBE 0, where the change is moderate. It's just tell, do and tell. you do it, and then you tell. Same with the minor changes, which is the annual reportable changes, where a firm actually reports those changes in its annual report. I've listed here some current post-approval guidances as it relates to some common dosage forms, such as immediate release, modified release, semi-solids, and then there's the post-approval changes for alternate testing and laboratory testing sites, changes to, which is the general, which is not dose specific, the changes to approved NDAs and ANDAs. There's also the annual reportable changes guidance, as well as for drug substances, and then the comparability protocol. For complex generic drugs, due to the complexity in nature of either the drug product or the drug substance itself, some of these guidances appear either outdated or not applicable, not specific to that particular dosage form. And that is where the challenges come, in that it results in filing categories for some products that are not clearly defined. And then for such products that are not clearly defined, it results in overly conservative approaches to post-approval changes. There's therefore the need for transparency and clarity regarding the life cycle management of these products. Some common regulatory barriers that such complex generic drug products face include, confusion as to which filing category would they fall into, as well as the data requirements for such changes. For this reason, and due to the timeline, confusion in timelines, ICH has come out with some guidelines from QA through Q14 that actually deals with early stage of the product life cycle, as well as drug product development. Of importance is the IC. I mean, all are very important, but the forward here is that we want quality to be built into the drug product, rather than for quality to be by testing of the product after manufacturing of the product. So we have that quality by design. We're going to focus more on ICH-Q12, which talks about, as I said earlier, established conditions, as well as the post-approval changes management protocol. Established conditions are legally binding or conditions which require submission of a supplement if these are changed. So they form the elements of control strategy in an application based on the product and process parameters or facility and equipment operating conditions or in-process controls, finished product specifications, and associated methods and frequency that are necessary to assure process performance and product quality of the drug. So if any established condition is changed, it requires a submission of a supplement. Supporting information does not require regulatory submission if changed, and the extent of ECs vary based on the understanding of the drug product, as well as the process, the manufacturing process itself, characterization of the product, and then the firm's own developmental approach, and then the potential risk to product quality. Product and process understanding come from the development studies, platform knowledge that is built, or commercial experience. After established conditions are identified, the applicant may follow existing guidelines or regulations or as far as the reporting categories for any changes that are proposed, or they can propose an alternate reporting category, but based on thorough risk assessment as justification. Reporting category is always dependent on the potential risk to product quality, as I stated earlier. So the risk assessment should follow approaches described in the risk management protocol in ICH Q9. Consider overall control strategy and then possible concurrent changes. What this does is it increases transparency between industry and regulatory authorities, in that there's better design of the product, as quality is built into the product right from the onset, with fewer problems in manufacturing, since decisions are made based on process understanding and risk mitigation. And for agency, there's improved quality information and require regulatory submissions, as well as the quality of the review. Post-approval changes management protocol. It's referred to in the US by the FDA as comparability protocol, and it provides predictability and transparency regarding the information that's required to support a CMC change and the submission required for that change. It may be submitted with the original application or as a standalone submission. Could be a prior approval supplement, and can be submitted to address one or more changes for a single product, or it may address one or more changes to be applied to multiple products. For example, if a company has, let's say, injectables and then wants to qualify, let's say, a stopper for the products, it can submit a comparability protocol in a higher filing category. And then once that protocol is approved, it can be applied to all the other products. It submits, as long as the FDA approves those proposed tests as well as conditions that are submitted, then a lower filing category can be submitted for the other products to use those. Should note that CMC change that will require supportive efficacy safety, that's clinical or non-clinical or human pharmacokinetic or pharmacodynamic data, is not suitable for inclusion in a PACMP. The first step involves the submission of a written protocol with the proposed tests to be carried out for the proposed change. Usually that's the strategy, is to submit a PAS with the listed number of tests and conditions to be met. Once the FDA reviews these tests or strategy and approves it, the firm goes to the execution stage, where it generates the necessary data for the exhibit batch, as well as validation and verification reports and stability. And then step 2, once it's approved, is for the firm to submit these data in a lower filing category. So I have provided here a timeline where, for, let's say, the submission of a PAS, assuming it takes about 4 months for those comparability protocols to be reviewed and approved, the firm goes through the execution stage and then generates the necessary data, submits an exhibit batch with all the supporting information. It's submitted as at a lower filing category. So in that case, a CBE 30 submission, that is to tell, wait, and do. So within 30 days, the firm can implement the change, as long as all the conditions or the results that are generated meet the acceptance criteria and conditions in protocol. They are met. Applicant submits the information to FDA. If the acceptance criteria and other conditions stated in the protocol are not met, then the change cannot be implemented using this approach. The advantages with this is there's increased clarity and standardization. There's increased manufacturing efficiency, reduced regulatory burden, reduced drug shortages, reduced time, as well as costs. Post-approval changes to drug device combination. I'm gonna have to run through this. The current guidance for industry changes to approved NDA, ANDA, only gives 2 examples for container closure or for devices. Which talks about the manufacturing site, as well as for the container closure change itself to be submitted as a PAS for these devices. Design control for MDIs, that's for metered dose inhaler as well as for dry powder inhalers, require a combination of product understanding, process understanding, as well as device understanding to gain a thorough understanding of these. Usually, drug device combination products is a split review between CDRH and then CDER or CDER. I have provided a correlation between dry powder inhaler or MDI components, mainly dry powder inhaler, of some of the critical quality attributes for the device constituents as well as the drug formulation constituents that go together to affect the final product quality of these devices. For the drug substance, I say particle size, as well as the morphic form of the drug substance, excipient CQAs, device CQAs, all go in together to affect the final drug product quality that is provided. And knowledge of these very helpful in effecting changes post-approval. The FDA came out with a guidance for the ICH implementation strategies for and part of it includes the identification of established conditions and then the reporting categories for the device constituents part of a drug device combination product. So the three questions that you ask is whether the device constituent part is very essential for safe use based on risk management, or whether it's essential to achieve the delivery of the labeled dose. And does it impact drug product critical quality attributes? If the answer is yes, then the device constituent is actually very essential or performs a primary characteristic to the drug product. Based on the level of potential risk, either PAS or CBE30 or CBE0 can be submitted. If the answer is no to all, then it's not reported. Its annual report is submitted in the firm's annual report. Here's a challenge question. So if an applicant submits a CBE30 to propose the extension of micronization pressure parameter range during the micronization of the drug substance that was used or that's used in the manufacture of a dry powder inhalation product. Applicant cites section 7C1B of the post-approval changes guidance. That's a change in drug substance manufacture or parameters to support the proposed change. Should this supplement be granted CBE30 based on the submission, or should it be elevated to PAS based on section 7B1 of the drug post-approval changes guidance? Because the changes in the micronization pressure parameters involve elevating the upper limit of those parameters for the drug substance. And the answer is B. It should be elevated to PAS. And the reason is that the revision to the drug substance micronization process parameters may affect the particle size distribution for the drug product. We all know that one critical quality attribute is the aerodynamic particle size distribution for a dry powder inhaler. So it will be elevated to PAS based on that, the criticality of that change. Post-approval changes to transdermal delivery systems. We know that transdermal delivery systems usually consist of the drug and adhesive mixture, the release liner, the backend, based on whether it's a matrix type transdermal or it's a reservoir transdermal or topical delivery. The questions remain as to what should be submitted. How far should the firm go into the characterization of any change? Is there a BE study that should be performed based on that change, or in vitro skin permeation test or in vitro release will suffice it. That is where the confusion is. I've provided some supplements where the changes have been submitted as a PES or a CDE30 for examples of these. The challenge question is, an applicant submits a CDE30 to propose an increase in batch size less than 10 times, changes to components of the adhesive and source of foil within the pouch material. The data submitted to support the proposed change indicate that the changes do not adversely affect drug product quality. Should a supplement be downgraded to a CBE0 based on the data provided? Or should it be granted as a CBE30 as submitted? Or elevated to PAS due to the potential high-risk change to the adhesive component? And the answer is that this is a multiple related change, so it's elevated to a PAS. We know that the adhesive or adhesive component represents a change in the component of a formulation, and it has a substantial potential to have an adverse effect on product quality. The adhesive of a transdermal delivery system is critical to the safety, efficacy, and quality of the drug product, since it is in intimate contact with the drug substance and or other excipients that may alter either the adhesive properties and or influence the release of the drug. So the key word here is the potential of that change to have an adverse effect on product quality and not how good the data looks. So synthetic drug products, the FDA defines peptides as any alpha amino acid polymer composed of 40 or fewer amino acids. FDA released the guidance for submission for NDAs that refer to RLDs or recombinant DNA origin. Due to the current state of technology for peptide synthesis and characterization, applicants can submit ANDAs under the 505J pathway of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, for which synthetic drug products that reference previously approved peptide drug products of recombinant DNA origin. So generic peptide drugs must demonstrate the sameness to RLD, in that the API must be characterized to show that peptide-related impurities are same or lower than those of the RLD, and any new specified peptide-related impurity that is found must be less than 0.5, and the appropriate justification provided on why or how its presence would not affect the safety and effectiveness of the generic product compared to the RLD. So in the absence of a specific post-approval changes guidance for generic synthetic products, post-approval changes have been based on a combination of risk assessment and knowledge gained from the original submission. And especially, I'm going to hit especially on for approved drug substance. Any change in the drug substance manufacturing process require the applicant to demonstrate that the new peptide is thoroughly characterized to show all peptide-related impurities are the same or lower than the approved drug substance, as well as the RLD. And to characterize any new specified peptide-related impurities and justify why the presence of such new impurity would not be expected to affect the safety and effectiveness of the drug product. So characterization of the generic drug substance provide adequate information on the primary sequence, secondary structure if there is, oligo or aggregation status, as well as the biological activities. These are examples of some PAS and CBE30s based on the type of changes that are proposed by the applicant. So in conclusion, it's applicants' responsibility to improve the quality of submission by using science-based and risk-based approach to assess the impact of proposed changes on drug product quality. To also demonstrate good product and process understanding of your supplement. That you should adopt modern quality techniques with focus on sound science for assessing and mitigating risk of poor product quality and process quality. So CDER, quality by design, CQA, CPP, CMAs, and control strategy needed. So at the end of the day, we'll be able to stand by our products. Thank you.